And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is James Scholder, who during his near-death experience went to both heaven and hell. James, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad that you're here too. And if you don't mind, James, let's start on the day that you had that car accident and go from there.
It was a beautiful day, July 22nd, 1995. The sun was shining. There was no I had done all the morning chores and collected all the garbage, and I was on my way to the dump. And on the way, I got into a collision with a Ford F-350. I was in a Ford Escort, and it basically made me part of the car. It took them about an hour and a half to extract me, and then another 45 minutes to life flight me from Connecticut to Boston. And I don't remember any of it. I don't remember the car accident. I don't remember the life flight. I don't remember arriving at the hospital. What I do remember is that all of a sudden, I guess, because there was no time, I was in the most blissful place I could possibly imagine. It was my heaven, and I didn't have. It's like people ask me, did you see anybody? Well, I didn't need to see them. I knew they were there with me. They were part of me, and I was part of everything. With the landscape, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. Um, Imagine a picture from the Hubble telescope of all the galaxies. Okay, that's how I felt, but I was part of all of it, and it was all part of me. Um, I didn't feel any sensation except happiness, joy, um, comfort, warmth, um, all those things that we really would want in life. Uh, and like I said, I'd been there for an eternity, and I would be there for an eternity. There was no time; it just was. And from there, I call it being ripped because that's what it felt like. I was ripped out of that environment, and I found myself in a place of pain, humiliation, suffering, grief. Name everything you hate, and that's what it was. Um, Again, I didn't see people. I was having my organs ripped out, but I never saw a face. Um, I could feel it. It was very visceral. I mean, it was very painful, and I couldn't take it. I was being tormented, and I was not going to be. So I called on all the power that I was promised by, I'll call it my higher power because that's what it is. You can put a name on it, whatever you want. But I called on all that power that I had and just yelled no. And then the next thing I remember, it's a few weeks later, and they're trying to bring me back to cognivity. I shouldn't have been alive in the first place. Um, I pretty much arrived at the hospital DOA, but they had what's called an ECMO machine that they hooked me up to keep my lungs, they're pumping my lungs, pumping my heart, and occasionally electroshock through the head so they could see a frog's legs twitch. There was no activity. It was just sending signals through the nerves so they could see what happened when they did something. Um, I'm not sure how long they worked on me. All I know is that, when it came time to pull the plug, my wife at the time, just, said, okay, well, you know, harvest the organs you want, and then, we'll call it. And when they pulled the plug, they were waiting for someone to come down and call the time officially. And my brain started showing activity, and my body started showing response to that activity. And I became stable, physically stable. And there was still a lot of work they had to do. And they kept me in a coma for quite a while so they could keep working on me. And when they brought me back to being aware, they had to kind of wean me into it, because if I stayed awake too long, the pain would send me into shock and start killing me. So I was only allowed to be awake for, periods at a time, short periods at a time. And then they got longer and longer and longer. And eventually I was cognitive. And there's three things that happen with a Lefort 3 fracture. That's like having a 10-pound bowling ball drop from 10 feet onto your face. It's the same shattering effect. You either die, you're in a coma, or you're in a vegetative state, or you're severely disabled. My IQ went up 20 points. That doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. But the psychiatrists, psychologists, they were very interested in why, and I really wasn't interested in why. I had healing to get to, and I just kind of accepted where I was now on Earth in the terms that I agreed to. I left out a little portion. It's kind of a large portion. When I was in the place of pain, um, I was given a choice that I could spend, I could just stay there because eternity was already there, or I could come back if I believed that, if I had the will to, I could come back, but I would go through the rest of my life in extreme chronic pain. And I told my mom many times that I was not going to die before her. And she's 93 years old, so I got some waiting to do, I guess. Um, but I decided, I'll take the physical pain. I've lived a life of physical pain, in one way or another. So I knew I could do that. I just didn't count on the intensity and how many surgeries were going to come after. But I agreed, and I keep my word. And so every day I wake up, and I put my feet on the floor and I give thanks, and then the pain hits. It's instantaneous. And I always have a thing called pain du jour. You have all this pain going through your body that's a typical every day, all the time, always will be pain. But then something flares up, like my right knee that had no damage at all. My left side of my body was completely obliterated, and they rebuilt it. But I get pains like in my right shoulder. There's no reason why there should be pain there, but there is. That's called having your nerves really messed up. And my nerves were really messed up. All of my vertebrae have compression fractures. I've had a lift put in my neck. And when I questioned them about it, because it didn't seem to make any difference, when I questioned them about it, my doctor did tell me that that was not an actual necessary surgery, but they had reason to do it and they wanted to do it. I'll show you a little something. See, there's a little bump right there. Well, that's a piece of titanium that runs down here and has a butterfly loop, and I wanted that removed because my glasses hit it and it hurts. So my doctor says, "Oh, yeah, okay." And so I went to the facial surgeon, and they said, "Yeah, we could remove that, but your face would just kind of go like this." And so I said, "That's okay. I'll keep the bump." But if people want to really know how it was, you can feel the brads and staples and titanium and this all the scars. But they had to take my face off to repair it. And when they put me back together, and I finally got a mirror, I looked the same as I did before. They didn't throw any Brad Pitt. They didn't throw any, nothing good in there. They just rebuilt me the way I was. Well, thank you very much. I was already that way. You know, can't you kick in a little bit of something, something? But you wouldn't be able to tell that my body has gone through all this damage. I've had a hip replaced 4 different times, my left hip replaced 4 different times because of my hyperflexibility. I just keep dislocating it. So they kept using prototypes, and they finally developed a locking hip. And that way I can't dislocate it. It was brand new back then, but now it's very common practice to have athletes that have damaged upper femurs to have that procedure done. Um, it's just been a wild ride. I believe I brought back carriers from both places. Because some of the power that I used to get out of where I didn't want to be felt like I had brought with me from where I was before. And then when I had enough and just yelled no, it felt like some of that power that I had taken with me helped. But I also acknowledged that when I came back, I feel like I took a couple dark passengers, and they do affect my personality. Um, I have to keep them in check. I've learned how to identify when that power is trying to take over, not really take over, but wants to influence me. So it's a battle between angels and demons. But for 30 years, I've fought this battle and I'm winning. I'm alive. I have a perfect bill of health. I mean, my body is in excellent shape to their doctor's demise. Um, my body is in best shape it can be physically. Um, I'm disabled, yes, but I can walk. I can't run. They took out a whole bunch of muscle groups from my leg and my gluteus because they were just shredded. They of no use. And but I can walk, and I enjoy life every single day just by thinking back of where I was first and having faith that I'll go back at some time. It's all in God's time. Um, whatever name you want to put on it. but it's not, it's not up to me. And if it were, I wouldn't be able to go back. Um, so I have to wait, and I don't mind waiting. I love my family dearly. I try to look for the best in everything and everybody, and I'll give you the best until you show me that you don't want it or will misuse it. Um, I don't know. I'm a pretty simple guy. I got simple needs, simple wants. Um, I thought I was given the promise of my partner forever, but unfortunately, he was my adopted stepson, died when he was 28. And so the lady I was with just could not take his death. And so I kind of died along with it. So after 10 years, I'm on my own again. And that's the hardest part sometimes, is just being by yourself. I'm my own worst enemy. I've I know what I'm capable of. Um, I know that I need things like this interaction. That way I can kind of express myself, tell somebody how I'm feeling that day, just to have it be said. And after that, it is usually better. I can handle things better.
James, thank you for sharing your experience with us. I want to check something within your timeline.
Okay.
When you were offered to come back, when you were given a choice, was that while you were in heaven or while you were in the hellish experience?
Oh, when I was in hell.
When you were in hell.
Yeah, I had no choice. I would, like I said, I felt like I got ripped from my heaven, like I had just been pulled out, and then my next memory, I guess you could call it, was being in that place of torment forever. I'd been there forever. I would be there forever. Like I said, time is not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so angry. I was so disappointed. I was mad. I was, I this is not what I wanted. And so I tried, and I was given the choice. You can have this power, it's in you. Use it, but you're going to be in pain the rest of your life, and you're going to be, you know, there's no stopping that. Or you can stay where you're at. Well, I was not going to stay where I was at. So, yes, I chose the option of living with pain.
Since you've been back, do you feel that you have any new abilities that could be considered psychic?
Well, I've always been a healer. It's one of the gifts I was given. But after I came back, it was amplified by, 20-fold. My sensitivity, empathy around people has gotten really heightened. Crowds are sometimes difficult because when you're feeling and hearing everything, it's hard to put the filter on and concentrate on main things. Um, so I suppose so. I used to be an artist, and I used to write. But I can't, those abilities are gone now. I put a pen to paper and nothing happens. And I try to write and it just doesn't flow. But I can do math much better. I couldn't do math before, but it took a few years. But I can do all the calculations and everything in my head now just with no problem.
You said that your IQ went up 20 points. And
Yeah.
since you're
Yes.
better at math, it kind of sounds like you have something called acquired savant syndrome, or at least a little bit of it.
Yeah, could be. Could be. Um, yeah, I had a 126 IQ when I had the accident. When they did their psych exams and all that stuff, they gave me, of course, an IQ test, and my the test on the test had gone up 20 points, and that's when I pretty much told them we're done. You know, I don't want you poking on me. I don't want you prodding me. You take. I'm not. You don't need any more of my blood. If you got a question, ask me. I'm not going to do these sessions because they're for you, not for me. And I'm done.
What was their reason for why your IQ went up?
They don't have one. I shouldn't have. I'm an anomaly that should not be. Nobody has survived. Only 2% of the people in the world that have had my kind of extensive injuries, including the Lafort, only 2% survive. And like I said, out of those 2%, coma, vegetable, or mentally impaired. Only 0.5% of that 2% even can make a straight thought. So I was blessed that way. I don't know why I was blessed. My healing was much more rapid than the doctors had anticipated. And I gained range of motion of things that I shouldn't have. But I've heard doctors say I don't know so many times that I believe them. That's why they call it a practice, I guess. You know, I'm one of those kind of people that they really want to get a hold of and see why I do, how I can do what I do. Unfortunately, I don't like being passed around. I've had so much radiation gone through me from X-rays, CAT scans, MRIs that I turn off the light, I glow. You know, it's just there comes a point where you just say I'm done.
I'd like to dig a little deeper about these dark passengers. Do
Okay,
you feel like you have ghosts with you or entities?
no entities. Yeah, it's like it's a little bit of evil.
Have you tried to force them to leave?
No, they're they're actually useful sometimes. You know, evil is not good. Anger can be productive. Um, I don't get angry for that specific purpose, and I really try very very hard not to get angry because I hurt people with my voice. Um, the things I say, how I say them, the intensity. Um, that's one of the dark passengers that I have. It's I don't necessarily think they are evil in the way that we think that they're going to drag me to hell. No, they're more like my protector. Just like when I came out of my out of my heaven, I could tell that I had passengers with me. I could feel them, and they're still here too. In my times of just of giving up, I have to just relax and remember that I have part of my heaven with me, and it helps.
You call them dark passengers, but is it possible that they're your spirit guides and you're only perceiving some of the negative stuff about them, but they're really here to help you?
Yeah, it's that's a good possibility. Um, I've it's very hard to explain what the dark passengers um, are. They make me more alert. Like if I'm walking somewhere and it's dark, I, everything, my senses just click on much, much higher. And if I was docile and just happy and lying along, I wouldn't be able to tell if there was danger ahead or not, um, as well. So yes, I learned from these, if you want to call them spirit guides. Um, I do learn from them
How do they communicate with you?
by changes in my body. I can feel the changes physically in my body when when they're manifesting themselves, when they're being called upon, when they're making themselves known. Um, one of the downfalls is I have clinical depression. I had it before the accident. Um, but when that starts kicking in, that's when it's hardest to fight the dark ones because they really want to see me try again. Try dying again. And I'm done with that. I I've had suicidal tendencies since I was 14, and now I've come to peace with all of that. I mean, I died. I couldn't do it here myself with my own hand, but after my experiences, I'm fine being here, and I'm not in any hurry to get back, but I can't wait. It's so, yes, I learn from them. And I don't consider myself a sinner or a saint, but I do have some spiritual guides that have been with me since then. Uh, Anger is a great thing when you're trying to heal because it forces you to keep going. You know, you I get so mad at pain that I have to find a way to eliminate it. Just get rid of it. And narcotics and stuff, it does not do that. Um, it's a deeper pain. And that's when I kind of call in my good passengers, my angelic, not angelic, but my good passengers, and they help me out. It's a spiritual battle. It's always going on.
Are you saying that you brought both angelic and dark passengers back?
Well, I don't know if, like I said, I can't use the word angelic because I didn't see any angels. It's just energy. It was such powerful, positive love and energy. And so, yes, I did bring both back. And I was changed when I came back, when I accepted what was going on. It took quite a few years for me to just come to grips terms with what had happened to me because, you've seen the pictures and, I'm one of those people that any doctor you see will just scratch his head and not know why. You know, I've never got a good answer.
Have any of your spiritual beliefs changed as a result of your NDE?
No, actually, they're reinforced. I've studied Holy Scripture from all religions. Um, I've read about every path there is to take, well, I can't say every because it's a lot, but all the mainstream, including Native American, Wiccan, everything, and nothing that happened during my death experience contradicted any of it. And I had no expectation of heaven or hell because nobody has a definitive answer on what it is, where it is, who it is, what, anything. It's so I really didn't have expectations whatsoever. And what I did have was absolutely incredible. I have a nebula light that I cast on my ceiling at night, and it's got stars, and that kind of brings me back a bit to that unbelievable warmth and acceptance and just indescribable bliss. And I believe that I took passengers from there to help me deal with what I was going to have to be going through. And the dark travelers, I call them those because that's what followed after I decided not to stay. Um, they've given me the strength to keep healing, to keep going on, to be angry about being broken, being angry about there's plenty of things to be angry about. And a lot of times that anger helps to heal.
In a way, you kind of remind me of Star Wars, where there's power in the dark side and anger.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gray. I walk the line between light and dark. I'm gray because yes, I I do know what I'm capable of and you know what I brought with me.
Is there anything about your experience that inspires you?
Yeah, that I lived and that I I went through so much torment healing physically. Um that now I believe I can do anything that I set my mind to. If I can imagine it, if I can see it, I can make it so. And I believe in that. I'm mostly from my own body. I had hemochromatosis, and that's a genetic disorder. And I got tired of being poked and prodded. So I don't know how, but both genetic markers shut off. They just went dormant. They can't go dormant. That's not their nature at all. Um, Instead of having to give blood to get iron out of my system, now I have to take iron supplements. I asked my doctors why. I asked my hematologist why. Same answer. I don't know. We don't know how this happened. This shouldn't happen. This doesn't happen. It did. So that's all we can tell you is that it happened. And it's reinforced my beliefs. And I think it's helped me give peace to people who are troubled. Um, I'd rather heal with love and kindness than, well, that's the only way to heal. And I love passing on what I feel. And if people can accept it, they can also do anything they want. They don't have to be ran over by a truck. If it's in your own innate power to for you to be able to do anything you want. You just got to believe. You got to trust, believe, have faith, but have a clear picture in your mind of where you're going to be, and don't. I don't pray. I think it's two different things. Um, I think that I'm healing better. I think that I'm getting knit back together better. I don't pray for it to happen. I just think that it is. That's, that's my belief. That's just kind of my philosophy. I all all religions say that spiritually you are as strong as the one you believe in. And I believe that because of my experiences. Um, like I said, I should not be here. I am an anomaly that they don't, I'm still being tested, being put under tests to try to figure out how I work and what ticks and why my blood is the way it is. And, it's been a journey. And if I can help one person along the way, and I believe I have, then all of that pain, all of that suffering to get to where I am now is worth it.
Well, I think you're going to be helping thousands of people just by sharing your story today.
Well, I hope so, because there is hope. No matter how broken you are, there's hope if you have it. If you want to stay the way you are, that's your decision too. That's your prerogative. But you do have the joy of generations in you and the power of generations in you. And you can get through anything. Don't doubt yourself, and don't doubt the power that you have inside yourself. It's I'm not talking against any religion, and I'm not trying to contradict any religion. I'm just verifying what the religions say about that kind of spirituality.
Do you believe in reincarnation? And if so, why do we keep coming back over and over again?
I believe in, well, there's a lot of answers to that. Um, it depends on how you want to look at it. In the Jewish tradition, Jewish faith, there's a thing called a guff, and it is the well of souls. And once the well of souls is empty, then the next change in the world will come. Okay, that's one version. Um, I believe in genetic memory. I believe people know more, a lot more, than they think they know. They just don't know how to open themselves up and access the genetic memory from that. I went through college and it was extremely tedious. I taught a couple classes because the teacher thought it'd be a great idea. Uh, but I really didn't learn anything. I knew what they were going to teach. And so when the test came, I tried to test out of every class. And most classes I did, even though I'd never taken the subject. It was just knowledge that came forward. It was like the files in my brain. It flipped through them and said, okay, here we are. Boom, that one. And so I believe in reincarnation is tricky because, do you get reincarnated as a rat if you're a bad person? If you're a good person, then what? Do you have to go through all this terrible stuff again? Or do you just get to go to Nirvana? Not the band, the place. Um, the concept. So yeah, I I don't, like I said, I don't believe in reincarnation so much as genetic memory. And I think that's a field that a lot of people, including science, has ignored. And we carry genes, mitochondrial, from the very beginning of when we were sapien. Um, and that's still passed down. That's the right now, RNA and mitochondria is the only those are constants. They've been there forever, and I think why can't it carry thoughts with it or actions? Um, it's I learned a lot of things I didn't know, but I knew them.
If you had a friend that was grieving over the loss of a loved one, what kind of advice would you give?
That you're grieving for yourself. You're not grieving, you know, for them. They you're you're already part of them already, and they are already part of you already. Um, Death is not. It's a physically permanent thing, but spiritually it never goes away, and you carry them with you. But if someone dies, like when my father died, I didn't grieve. I was happy. I was glad. Not that he was gone, but where he had gone to. He was solid in his faith. He was solid in his beliefs, and I know he's fine. So I did. Grieving is just for me, not him. He wouldn't like me having to change my life and my way of thinking, and being depressed and inviting evil when it's actually a joyous occasion. When people lose children, that's especially hard. Mental pain is a real thing, and to get through mental pain is painful. Um, but once you do go through the acknowledgement, it's kind of like the grieving process. But I skip a lot of steps. Um, but if you think about what you're doing, why your attitude is the way it is. Now, is it for them or for you? Now, if it's for them, they're gone. They don't, I mean, no good. If you're grieving for yourself, well, you're that selfish. Then, you're not doing anybody any good. What you should be doing is thinking about that their essence is still there. And you're going to do the best with your life so you can feel them with you more. I mean, when you start thinking bad about or start feeling negative, um, evil loves it. It'll amplify it, and you just have to. For me, I just have to realize that they have transitioned to a much better place. So I should be glad. I'm sad. Maybe I'm sad that I don't get to see them, but that's a physical thing. That's my thing. They're not. They don't know. They don't know. They already. I mean, they do, but when they die, they're in an eternity that you're a part of already too. So there is that connection that you are always going to be with them, have been, will be. Um, and take joy in that. When you think about them, instead of shedding a tear, smile. you know? Um, Death is different for everyone, but after you've gone through it, you get a different perspective, a little different perspective.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Yeah, of course.
What's the
Yeah.
best way to contact you?
Um, just by text. I can give you my text and you can put it on there. I'm not,
Do you want to give everybody your number?
sure, I could do that.
All right. What is it?
I live in San Diego, California. My number is 619-203-6508. One of the things after the accident, if you've been watching me, you've seen my mouth move a little differently. Um, I can't feel this part of my face, and most of this is numb. It's numb too. So in the hospital, when I finally got a mirror, I didn't get to have a mirror for a long time. When I finally got a mirror, my jaw was still wired shut, but I would practice making vowels with my lips because I couldn't feel them. So I had to learn how to pretty much talk again. Also eat again because I still do it. I mean, soup is not my friend. It just can come and anyway. I've had to get used to certain things that will never change. I mean, if I poke here, I can feel my tooth move here. It feels like my tooth moves here, and I poke there. It feels like my front tooth is wiggling. It's not, but my whole body's been rewired as far as the nervous system goes. It wasn't standard to begin with, but I've had some nerves burnt from my sacrum, uh, and right at the base of my spine. It's compressed, it's broken, um, and it's very painful. So they went in with some electrodes and found the base nerve, and then they fry it. It felt like just having a TINS unit. It didn't hurt anything like that, but it did help with the pain a lot. And I went through about 12 sessions of them going in and burning off pain centers and nerve centers. And now I'm doing better, but nerves find a way. Your body is an incredible machine. If you if you take the root out from a nerve system, they'll find a way around it. They just, they'll find a way to make themselves known, and that's the nature of pain. Um, it'll come back for me. It'll come. I will never be pain free until I don't breathe anymore. Um, and I've accepted that. I do what I can to keep happy and keep smiling and keep joking and always look for the humor in life. Because I tell you what, this is an incredibly funny place to live. This world, it's sad, funny, and humorous funny. I mean, thank goodness I don't do stand up. They'd never get me off the stage because
Well,
there's so much ridiculousness.
before we wrap it up, can you leave
Mhm.
us with one last positive message?
Believe in yourself. You are an individual person. There's never going to be, you're unique. You're an endangered species. There's never going to be anybody like you ever, ever again. Treat yourself like you're special. You are. Um, you have more power than you even imagine. Just smile and let it become part of you, and you'll see what I mean. So Love yourself.
James, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.